Hi, my name is Drew Hart. I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
I'm Sarah Cooleen. I'm with Preservation Virginia in Richmond, Virginia.
Sam Newton, Dothan Downtown Redevelopment Authority, Dothan, Alabama.
Afternoon, Jeff Wagner. I'm an architect from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Jim Flavel, San Francisco, California.
Nicole Hobson Morris, Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Well, good afternoon. On behalf of the Red Team, we would like to particularly take this time to thank the National Trust and the Foundation for Historical Louisiana and the citizens of Baton Rouge who have welcomed us here to learn all that we have learned. Preservation is not just about protecting signature buildings from a very distant past. It is also about serving the needs of community residents, acknowledging and overcoming economic challenges, protecting architectural and cultural resources from the more recent past, supporting sustainable and revitalized urban environments, which include pedestrian-friendly cities, and meeting and overcoming environmental challenges. Above all, however, it's about drawing citizens of communities together to create an environment that supports their desires and hopes and enables them to have productive and enjoyable lives. We have looked at the Commerce Building as well and have some recommendations as to how it can be adaptively reused. I want to ask my colleague Jeff to present this current situation of the building.
Thank you, Jim. Our team undertook a process this week that's not so unlike the process the developer will undertake when they look at this building. The first thing you have to do is look at the reality of the situation. And as many of you know, the Commerce Building is set vacant for the last 3 years. That's a reality of the economic conditions of not only Baton Rouge, but America in general today. So as we move through this presentation today, I'd like you to keep in mind that we've taken that into consideration. We've taken into consideration the fact that this is a tough economic time. This is a difficult project for any developer to undertake, but we really do believe that through our suggestions and the suggestions of the other team, that this project can and will be successful and will act as a catalyst for the 3rd Street corridor and the revitalization of downtown Baton Rouge. If any of you have walked by the building, you know that it's in a state of disrepair. What can be saved and what is valuable to be saved are the structural systems and the facade. This offers an envelope for which the developer can then start to develop. As the previous team mentioned, there are a number of mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems that are not only out of date due to the fact that they were originally put in 1955, but will need to be upgraded for energy efficiency concerns and other concerns. In addition, we have a complex ownership issue that has to be addressed. The Hart family has owned this land for generations and intends to continue to own the land for the foreseeable future. And they want to act as a partner in this project. So whether Bob Dean retains the building and decides to develop it himself, or a new developer comes to the table, the Hart family will be part of the project. And we actually think that's an asset, because they have not only a financial stake in the success of the community, but they have a cultural and social stake in the success of the community. Now on to the developer. Bob Dean does own the building, retained it for a fairly good price, but as any good businessman, he'd like to a return on his investment, and that's understandable. So he's going to do what's financially best for him, but I really feel after meeting with him that he has a stake in the success of the project, not just because he is a Baton Rouge resident, but also because he owns other property in the neighborhood, and as the neighborhood revitalizes, his other properties will increase in value. In addition to that, there's a number of design issues. As an architect, I would like to do a lot of really contemporary things with the building that at all times aren't appropriate. But I also think as an architect that we look at the problem at hand and employ some creative problem solving. So things like the facade, there are some gives and takes, such as I would put a sage structure on the west facade of that building. However, I understand the historical importance of the facade and the economic incentives that can be gained by not doing that overweigh what I personally would like to do as an architect. And that's something we found out this week. Yeah, that's rare, right? An architect that doesn't, I didn't say that I wouldn't do it if I owned the building. In addition, there's a number of community concerns. There is a workforce of approximately 20,000 in the downtown area. The current housing has been aimed at an we use the term upwardly mobile this week, young professionals. And that's great because they do revitalize communities. However, when you market any residential stock to one unit, you don't get the type of diversity that's required for a walkable and livable downtown area. So we're suggesting in our proposal that you actually have a really broad cross-section of housing units that reflects the demographics of the workforce that's in the area. And when you really look at the numbers and who works in the area, it's all the way from service workers to your legislators. So you can imagine the wide diversity that you have there. I'd like to hand it over to Jim to speak a little bit about how we intend to approach some of the obstacles that we feel the developer will have, and then I'll be back in a minute to speak with you.
Thank you, Jeff. As Jeff referenced, there are obstacles to the planning for the adaptive reuse of this building, and that's well known to many members and stakeholders in the community. Among those obstacles is a lack of clarity about what constitutes, in this comparatively recent structure, the historic design elements that the community feels are most important to preserve, to preserve that sense of place. It is our recommendation that this initial preservation, this initial obstacle about the design preservation issues be addressed through a partnership as an intermediary with the Foundation for Historical Louisiana. Through technical assistance and other planning efforts, the community can come together and decide what it feels are those design elements and how reasonable and effective it is to try and preserve those, whether they be the ribbon windows, the recessed vitrines, signage issues, the lobby, or other issues. Funding for this kind of very preliminary planning effort might be available either from the Bay Area, Baton Rouge Area Foundation, donor-advised funds, potentially the owner of the building structure himself, or other sources. This will, in fact, enable there to be time to start clarifying issues for a new kind of dialogue about reuse possibilities to take place and to move a process forward which has had fits and starts and more stops. So we advocate that this initial step be taken to try and move the process along in ways that it has not moved along so far. I'd like to return to Jeff now, who would like to outline what are our specific recommendations as to the use of the renovated building.